My name is Harold Bennett, and I'm 79 years old. I spent 42 years avoiding my feelings, not fighting them, not misunderstanding them, avoiding them. And it cost me every close relationship I ever had. I'm telling you this because I don't need anything anymore. I don't need to be forgiven or understood. I just don't want these thoughts to die with me, unopened. Most mornings now are quiet, too quiet. The house sounds hollow, like it knows it's waiting to be emptied. The clock ticks. I drink my coffee slowly because there's no one to talk to while it's still hot. I used to think I liked quiet. I told people I needed it. What I really meant was I didn't want to be asked how I felt. At this age, people stop asking anyway. I look at old photographs sometimes, not often. There's one of my wife, Eleanor, standing in our first kitchen. Yellow wallpaper. She's holding a wooden spoon like a microphone, laughing at something I said. I don't remember what I said. I remember thinking I should get back to work. That was my answer to everything. Work, responsibility, keeping things moving. Feelings were interruptions. I grew up in a house where feelings were treated like bad manners. My father worked long hours and came home tired and silent. My mother kept the peace by not stirring anything up. If you were upset, you went to your room until you weren't. Nobody explained anything. You just learned what didn't get you in trouble. So I learned to be steady, dependable. I learned to show up and do what was needed. People praised me for that, teachers, bosses, neighbors. They called me solid. They said Eleanor was lucky. I believed them. In my 20s, I married Eleanor because she was warm and expressive and seemed to understand things without being told. I thought that meant she wouldn't need much from me emotionally. I thought my job was to provide and stay out of the way. I never said that out loud. I didn't have to. That's how I lived. We bought a small house near the plant where I worked. I worked maintenance, then management. Long hours, but honest. I came home tired and proud of it. Dinner was usually ready. Eleanor would tell me about her day. I'd nod. Sometimes I'd smile. I didn't ask many questions. I thought listening meant being quiet. When she cried, I froze. I didn't know what to do with tears. I'd offer solutions or silence, or I'd leave the room and come back later when it had passed. She used to say, "Harold, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you here." I was there. I just wasn't inside myself. We had 2 children, a boy and a girl. I loved them. I know I did. I went to their games when I could. I paid for lessons. I fixed things around the house so Eleanor wouldn't worry. But I didn't sit on the edge of their beds and ask what scared them. I didn't notice when my daughter stopped talking at dinner. I didn't hear the change in my son's voice when he started spending more time away from home. I told myself they were fine. Kids are resilient. That's what people said. Avoidance is quiet. That's the thing about it. It doesn't announce itself. It just smooths everything down until there's nothing left to grab onto. In my 30s and 40s, life looked good from the outside. Promotions, a bigger house, vacations we photographed, but didn't really inhabit. I was reliable. I was respected. At home, Eleanor grew quieter, not angry, just tired. She stopped asking me how I felt because she already knew the answer. "I'm fine," I'd say, and I was, in the narrowest sense of the word. There were moments I almost noticed, a long pause before she went to bed, a sigh that lingered in the hallway, the way she started calling her sister instead of talking to me. I noticed those things the way you notice a crack in the sidewalk, something to step over. I thought intimacy was something you either had or didn't. I didn't know it was something you had to keep choosing. The damage didn't come all at once. It came in missed conversations, in nights where we watched television instead of each other, in words I meant to say and never did because it felt awkward to start. I assumed there would be more time. That assumption followed me everywhere. It made everything feel temporary. Every problem could be handled later. Every feeling could wait. When Eleanor finally told me she was lonely, I was surprised, genuinely. I told her we lived in the same house, that I was right there. She looked at me for a long time before she answered. I remember that look more clearly than almost anything else. It wasn't anger, it was recognition. "You're here," she said, "but you're not with me." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I didn't. I went to work the next day like nothing had happened. A year later, she moved out. There was no screaming, no betrayal, just exhaustion. She said she needed to feel like a person again. I said I understood. I didn't fight for her. I told myself that was respect. After the divorce, the house felt even quieter. The kids were grown by then. They called on holidays. Sometimes. I told them I was doing fine. I started filling my time with projects, repairs, committees, anything that gave me a reason not to sit still. Stillness is dangerous when you've avoided yourself your whole life. Eleanor and I stayed civil. We met for coffee once or twice. She looked lighter, older, but lighter. That hurt in a way I didn't have language for. When she remarried, I sent a card, wished her happiness. I meant it. I also felt something close to panic, though I didn't call it that. It was the sound of a door closing. Years went by. My children built their own lives. They didn't come to me with problems. They didn't come to me with joys either. I was background noise, a dependable presence. I told myself that was enough. The turning point came quietly, like everything else. A phone call from my daughter. Eleanor had been diagnosed with cancer, late stage. I visited her in the hospital. She looked small in the bed, fragile in a way she never had before. We talked about practical things, her will, her comfort, the weather. There was so much I wanted to say. I could feel it pressing against my chest. I didn't say any of it. She died 3 weeks later. At the funeral, people hugged me and told me I must have been a good husband for so many years. I nodded. I accepted their kindness. Inside, something finally broke open. Grief didn't come like a wave. It came like a slow leak. I started remembering moments I'd dismissed, words I'd avoided, how often I'd chosen ease over closeness. That's when the clarity arrived, not as insight, as certainty. I hadn't lost my relationships to anger or cruelty. I'd lost them to absence. You can't apologize for a lifetime of being unavailable. You can't explain it away. There's no conversation that makes up for years of silence. I tried to reconnect with my children after that, not dramatically, just small calls, invitations. They were polite, busy. They didn't owe me anything. I see them now a few times a year. We talk about safe topics, health, weather, work. We love each other in the way people do when they don't really know each other anymore. That's one of the things that can't be fixed. Time doesn't refund what you didn't spend wisely. Now, at 79, I sit with my feelings because there's nothing else to do. They're clumsy and late, like guests who miss the party and don't know where to stand. I feel regret, yes, but not the dramatic kind. It's more like weight, something constant. I also feel gratitude. I had people who tried, who reached for me again and again. I didn't know how rare that was. If I could tell my younger self anything, it wouldn't be advice, it would just be a description. I would tell him that avoiding discomfort feels like safety, but it's actually erosion. That being needed isn't the same as being known. That silence can sound like peace, until you realize it's just emptiness with better manners. I don't say this to scare anyone. Life is complicated. We do what we can with what we know. I just wish I had known sooner that feelings don't disappear when you ignore them. They wait, and they collect interest. If you're listening to this and it stirred something, you don't need to do anything about it right now. Just notice it. That's already more than I did for a long time. I don't have many years left. I know that. I'm not afraid of dying as much as I'm afraid of how quietly I lived. Some nights I talk to Eleanor out loud. I tell her the things I never said. I don't know if that matters. It matters to me. This is me, finally being present. Late, imperfect, honest. That's all I have left to offer.